say more change is born of crisis rather than vision. And now we are in a crisis. So if there's anything positive in this economic environment and the crisis we're in, is that we can really resolve to capitalize on the challenges involved, and we can start to do things radically differently. Because I think the reason you ask that question is because there is a degree of frustration that we all come to these conferences, I'm asked the same questions, we listen to the same answers, and it doesn't seem that there's dramatic innovation in the industry. And yet I think there is. I think on a positive note, I've been in the industry and I started in media in '82, so a long time. And I have come from a world where media was the 5 minutes or 2 minutes at the end of the meeting with a high level of disregard to the importance and complexity of what we did. And now here we are advising clients on marketing strategy, understanding technology and emerging media and the impact on a radically changed consumer, I think better than anyone else. So I think the media sector, and I talk here agency, media owner, I make no distinction. I think the media sector is a vibrant, exciting, and highly innovative space. I'm just not sure we showcase what we do. Facing us with regard to technology, or digital, or changing consumers. Think about social media. A lot of people are struggling with social media and the power of social media. But again, are we looking at it as a social buying opportunity or social science? I mean, the opportunity to generate insight, knowledge, really understand the way consumers are working with social media might not be valuable in a conventional context, but is very, very valuable for us as we want to become more strategic partners with our clients. So I think the nature of the structure of these conferences, you have to direct that question to Charlie Crow. It's a very small stake of something very valuable.
Yeah.
And becoming more valuable by the day. I mean, they acquired that stake when there were 25 million subscribers.
So, how do you consider Facebook? It's a media, it's not a media? Because then, if we quote, for instance, some big directors from Procter & Gamble will say, we don't want to be on the wall where you are breaking up with your girlfriend. So there is a whole thing about behavioral targeting the segmentation, on social media, how with Facebook you can address the right message to the right audience. But at the same time, brands are afraid of being involved in the conversation.
Yeah, well, I don't think they are. I mean, I think it's a very good question. It goes to a more fundamental issue of who's in control. Some marketers, some brands are extremely nervous about the power and influence of social media. Some brands, some marketers are so excited because they are going to reinvent their relationships and the bonds they have and the way brands behave. I love social media. I think what it has so powerfully demonstrated on a worldwide basis is that people want to communicate, people want to share, people want to talk. Whether we decide what they're sharing and what they're talking about is trivia, to them it's important. And I think what we're seeing is that the conventional order, the established order of the roles of the media and the audiences and the advertisers has been smashed apart. And you need to be a heretic. You need to favor that and embrace that and be excited about that. That there is in the heresy of the consumer's approach to new media, wonderful richness. Now, in these early days, the opportunity for us might be more about information and insight than it is about action. I don't think we should always act too swiftly. I think this is what a lot of our clients and the brands that are more conservative and nervous about, because they can't predict the outcomes. At Mediabrands, at both and Initiative, and all of our digital media companies, we have a very strong philosophy towards innovation. And innovation and experimentation, which means you won't know the answers going in. But the advantage of testing and experimenting means you will know something more coming out. You will know more coming out. We will learn. And I think, as an industry, if we continue to just refine and improve what we have been doing every day, it will be so boring. We will never attract intellectually powerful or curiously minded, creative types of our industry, because our industry would not be about art and creation, it would be about science and efficiency, in which case I'm going to hire more technology experts to automate and systematize business process. I wouldn't work in that industry. That's a really boring industry. What's an exciting industry is when we turn all this insight, this rich knowledge we have on these new social media, we turn these insights into strategies and into ideas. The most powerful of our workforce, our intellectual powers, they are loving this environment because there's no rule book. I was taught as a child, rules are for fools. My mother said, not my father. My father had more. But if you follow the rule book was written for yesterday's world. This is a whole new world. And ultimately, what I like about this is the consumers are in charge. In fact, I was at a recent conference with Microsoft. They have a very strong view, an individual there, a very senior individual, has a very strong view that our industry, collectively, the marketing services industry, PR, you know, CRM, event, experiential, media, that we lag. Our industry is so lagging the consumer developments, both strategically and creatively, that we're in very real danger of losing our relevance in the process unless we radically reinvent how we work and the types of people we employ. So that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm responsible for doing. For my businesses, I have to radically reinvent and repurpose our businesses. Because you don't want to run a better railroad if you believe the future is aviation. You've got to change the business model.
Why do you think it's been so slow to change? I mean, we've been talking about this for 5 years, about the model being reinvented. You came down as an alien spacecraft and had to reinvent the advertising industry. You wouldn't start with the mechanics that are in place now. So, I mean, obviously for you, that's an amazing challenge. But why is it taking so long? What's stopping this radical sort of transformation of the industry?
I think you can, Paul. You look at the music industry. I mean, you look at the record industry is dead. You look at the music industry is thriving. You look at Hollywood. Look at the content developments. I mean, what caused the massive change? These are industries. Look at banking. Look at financial services now. They're smashed to pieces. Smashed. And that's going to, and certain players are going to re-emerge out of that. You see JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs on one side, everyone else scrambling around. One thing we know is globally it's going to be a very different industry. So why is our industry not changed? I tell you, it's again, legacy thinking, conservative thinking. I mean, it's true. I fundamentally believe it. More change is born of crisis rather than vision. Because I think our industry, if I make a generalization, there's a lot of management, there's not enough leadership. Leaders who have vision. Because I think you need three things. You need leadership, right? You need a vision, you need strategic vision, you need leadership, and you need a passion to deal with the energy. I mean, I'm talking your stamina. Intellectually, physically, emotionally, it's the most draining job. Not just for me, but for anyone senior work, and I've got a lot of my senior colleagues here who I work with, it's a very taxing, challenging business because it's a massive paradox. Our complexity increases every day, our compensation goes the other way. So everyone wants more, and people say this to me, they say, Nick, you know, what do your clients think? And I say, well, which clients are you talking about? I have two very distinct kinds of clients. I have procurement directors and financial types, and I have my CMOs. And the procurement people are focused on efficiency and productivity, and my CMOs are in desperate need for better strategy, real innovation, and far more effective marketing strategies. So as you work between the efficiency and effectiveness model, We have to change. And you know the other issue? Someone asked it there, Mark asked it in the audience. Why do we still have 15? Why do we still have the agency commission system? We don't have the agency system. It sits there like a bird with a broken wing. And no one's just going to put it out of its misery. It doesn't exist anymore. So what's happened is we have not run to the fire of the business model and said, okay, if we're going to be a professional services business, how do we reinvent the economics around what we do? I think we should be able to. Paul, I guarantee you, anyone around this room, we look at every good or service, there's overcapacity. In every sector. So if there's overcapacity, branding matters, because branding distinguishes. Branding creates the value, the premium. So de facto, if branding matters, and if branding is very complicated to do, to both build and grow and sustain brand equity on a global basis, gets harder every day, why is our compensation going backwards and not forwards? Why are we not earning more for what we do? If it's so important, and it's so hard to do, the economics, we've got a business model problem. And the business model problem is ours. Actually, it's not our clients. The consequences are our clients, but the problem is not theirs, the problem is ours. So we have to resolve it. And I'm not sure when I sit there with Jack, Monado, Dominic, whoever. Last year was Maria Luisa. Do we solve it together? There's a bigger role for industry associations, there's a bigger role for conferences like this. Should I answer your question? It's a hard one to answer. I mean, easy to change. Now, if we design, the difference is I run legacy business models, as do all my colleagues, as do all my competitors, because in the media industry world, it's hard to set up a new shop, because the cost of technology and gear and, you know what I mean? Media, the business of media, is not for the faint-hearted. It is, you need a lot of money, okay? So no one just sets up. I mean, Naked come up and they start, and it's comms planning 10 years ago, now it's something very different. They're an IMC agency, just like any of the other IMC agencies. But if you want to get into the big global media business, that's a very, very tough game to want to get into. So I don't think, if you start from scratch, if we all if we in this room decided we wanted to set up a new business model, it would be very different. Not necessarily in terms of the nature of the people of the way, but it would be a different kind of construct, because you're not dealing with legacy issues to change. So I have to deal with legacy problems, and it's, someone described it to me as a good analogy. Someone said it's like doing a Rubik's Cube at high speed going down the rapids. So you're just looking to mix and change all the time. But, so that's why I'm saying you've got to love this industry.
But then where would the vision to solve something like that come from? For instance, right now there is a Nokia global pitch going on, and the said allegation is that it was because of the fee. The agency group M, for instance, not participating because of the fee. But just about everybody else is participating in that pitch. And clearly the client is not looking at giving a higher fee or anything, or a higher remuneration. And agencies are
Do you know that? I don't know that. I hadn't heard what you just said.
Okay. But either ways, so you said it yourself, that the remuneration is going down. And there is really nobody who's looking at resolving it. So how does it solve itself? I mean, where is that vision for the industry coming from?
It's interesting you say that. The industry, all industries are shaped. Railroads, technology. I don't think Steve Jobs acted from an industry point of view, or Bill Gates, or Rockefeller, or Vanderbilt. Or let's think about all the geniuses who created breakthrough and created industries. If I rely, it's like anything in life, if I'm going to put my destiny into the hands of others to solve, then I have a strategy based on hope. I'm not going to have a strategy based on hope. We take matters into our own hands for our own responsibility, and that means we have to focus on our own client relationships, and we have to work very hard to define our value in that. So, for example, the Nokia pitch, and we're involved in the Nokia pitch.
as is everyone else. Now, if a client assures me, because pitches are falling into two categories, pitches driven through procurement or pitches through performance. I think more at the moment are procurement driven in this economic environment on a worldwide stage than performance driven, where there's a fundamental performance issue. So if we are, this is the challenge we're facing. And by the way, everyone in marketing services is, and I think everyone in professional services is, how do we define the value as opposed to the discussion around the price? That is an industry issue. How I operate in that context is my individual issue. I do think, and we talked about it on stage, Dominic, Jack and I, we do need to get together and try and resolve some industry standards around performance marketing, some industry standards around data collection, some industry standards. I mean, let's identify what they are. But I don't think we are too competitive to want to try and resolve an industry standard around economics. There was one before called the 17.65. Agency commission was an industry standard all over the world, in most markets around the world. That's now been broken apart. What would help the industry is if we could all stop for 1 second and try and agree what the industry standard is around that. But it won't be around commission because the lawyers, the consultants, the accountants, I mean other professional services companies don't work on a commission-based model. They work based on fees and success-related compensation. So you know what? It's our hole. We need to dig ourselves out of it. But ultimately, there's a great sadness and an irony is many industries suffer, many businesses suffer before you see a new industry standard. Now we see digital download, we see digital music as being the industry standard. Now we see, you know, full technologies around everything that the technology, there's always one leader, one laggard. We saw that in the US between the Blu-ray and the Toshiba system that they were running. There was a casualty of that. So I think that's an inevitable part of evolution. As Charles Darwin has said, it's not the strongest or the most intelligent, but it's the most adaptable who survive. So we need to be very, very adaptable. It's interesting because when I started in the media business, it was all about size. Everyone talked about was the rankings you published. Now, sitting behind you is Paul, and there's Contagious, and it's a journal of creativity and innovation, and suddenly there's not one metric, not one standard. Because actually, for most of my clients, they know that an improvement of a 2% improvement on a CPM isn't going to shift the needle and drive their market share. What is going to shift the needle and drive their market share or their business growth is a dramatic, big breakthrough ideas that captivates consumers' hearts and minds. That, I think, is a very exciting space to be in.
I wanted to know your opinion, your personal opinion about the Spanish market, because we're here in Spain now. You have some companies here in Spain, and it seems to be a very difficult moment, more than other countries. But what's your opinion about advertising here?
I know the Spanish market well. We have some very large companies here, and I was very involved in the Telefonica pitch. Mm-hmm. So I was in Spain a lot during this process, and I think the Spanish market is I think virtually of all the European markets, the Spanish market is one that is very advanced in terms of innovation, very creatively oriented, very focused on the new media, especially mobility and mobile media, social media. Mm-hmm. But the economics are very challenging. I think of all the European markets, the main European markets, the economy in Spain has been one of the ones that was the biggest growth, biggest boom, property, investment in Latin America, I mean worldwide expansion. And I think Spain is feeling some pain now. And this has been reflected in the fact that consumers obviously aren't spending and the mix is changing. So Spain is a very important market for us. We see in our global networks of and Initiative, Spain has been a very important market to really showcase how marketing needs to be done differently. I always say, a lot of clients want to talk to me about new media. In isolation, they almost talk about new media and then they want to talk about their usual marketing methods. What I see in Spain, I see in a number of my most important markets around the world, I see the distinction between when new media is new marketing, when they're using new media to reinvent a marketing process, because by God, it needs to be reinvented. That happens in this market. In other markets, they see new media and the digital as something to be considered as a cheap alternative to television. It's the wrong way to think about it. We need to think about the new media, the digital media, and all the emerging technologies as smarter ways to integrate into our conventional activities and potentially completely reinvent all of our activities and make full commitments. The issue for all of our markets is we look for confidence. Spain is a very important market for sharing best practices. The person sitting next to you is Scott Tegetov. He runs global Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola has always been one of the markets in the world. Spain has been the leading creator for real breakthrough marketing ideas and activities. And we showcase more, I think, from Spain over the last 5 years than I think any other major market in the world. So Spain is very important. I mean, all the markets are important. But as we're here now in Spain, I'll say Spain is the most important.
Yeah. McCann and Nixon, no? McCann and Nixon. You? McCann and Nixon, no?
Universal McCann.
Universal McCann, okay.
I want to go back to what you were saying briefly also. To ask, what is the role of the holding company in the process you mentioned? In the, revising the model, you've got to change things and everything, but what's the role of holdings then? And somebody else said the bean counters of the world are not the ones that drive change. They look at the bottom line. They're not looking for innovation. They don't want to listen.
Are you asking me if I were running a holding company or the head of the holding company I work for?
What's your point of view? What is the use of a holding company now?
Well, it depends if your definition of a holding company is someone who allocates capital. Or you take a view, and I think, for example, Michael Roth, when he started running IPG, before I arrived, the year before me, so that's 4 years ago, 4.5 years ago, I think Michael arrived with a very classical financial, and the company needed it then. I think when Michael arrived, it was about fundamental sound business practice and allocation of capital. 4 years on, I know Michael's involved in virtually every major pitch, and he's helping reshape assets and talents and capability to deliver the most effective constructs for clients. So I think Martin Soll, if you were to say Martin Soll at WPP, John Wren at Omnicom, Michael Roth, what characterizes all these people? They all were classically trained financial people, right? They're accountants. They're now all in the marketing services business. They meet clients, they talk strategy, they talk agencies, they merge, they change. Everyone's looking. I think the role of a holding company, and I hate that definition. If I ever run a holding company, I won't call it a holding company. I know Sol calls it a parent. You're more involved, you allow your businesses to run, that you're very actively involved. And there's always that tension between a child and a parent, which is why children love to go to their grandparents, because they give them all sorts of shit to eat, make it fat. No one cares. Parents have to be the authority figures. Parents have to be more involved. And I think ultimately, the role of a holding company is very important if they're focused beyond just, as you said, counting beans. If they're an active business, and my partners in my holding company have been very, very active in my relationship with them in helping make better businesses, attract stronger talent, reinvent business processes, leverage new technology infrastructure. I think anyone who runs a holding company and doesn't do it this way should get out of a job. Because otherwise, our holding company is simply overhead, and you say, what's the point of having that? So again, all of these relationships have been re-examined. But I meant what I said earlier today. When this all shakes down, like the snow globe you had from your grandfather as a child, you throw it up, it will land in a very different way. The world will look different. That is very exciting. That's very exciting. You know, that's when contagious is not a fringe thought, but a mainstream concept.
I'd like to work you on that.
Thanks very much.
Right, thank you. Thank you.